All right, all right. What's up? What's up? This is the Daily HiFi Podcast. We don't have Chana here to do the sweet intro, but we do have Aaron with a knife.
That's not a knife.
You
This
call
is a
that a
knife.
knife?
Why do we have knives around?
Because we open boxes.
We open boxes. That's exactly right. That is exactly
What's
right.
up with you, man? You feeling good?
I'm feeling better, not 100%, but I'm standing. As long as I'm not sitting, I'm all right. But as soon as I sit, dude, it's game over. It hurts. I sneezed the other day. For real, I was coming out of Publix and I had a sneeze, and when I sneezed, I felt my disc like bulge out and hit my nerve, and it sent me to my knees, and it hurt so bad.
Are we just getting old or something? What's going on?
Mine's years of BMX, man.
Oh, really?
Years of BMX is just taking its toll on me.
Speaking of which, before I get into bike stuff, just want to say what's up to the folks here in the chat. I see you guys. Tim, of course, always first. Master Juan, how you doing? Where is he? Master Juan, Tim, Reverend Slim, Ralph, Ernest. We got Ike is in the house. What's up?
What up,
so if you
Ike?
see these little icons to say hi-fi, that's because they are members of our channel. So you can become a member too, and that helps. Oh, this is for the perks. This is for if you want some merch. But
go get that merch, son.
No, actually no, I was wrong. This one's for the merch. And the other one, this one, bit.ly/Daily HiFi Crew.
Yes.
Anyway, It's hard to do all this stuff. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do this. I'm posting. There's a lot to do. Anyway, my what is it? Trying to get the ages right. You guys are always making fun of me because I don't know the dates. But yeah, my 6-year-old, she just learned how to ride a bike, and it was kind of crazy because I guess that's supposed to be a hard thing. I know how you taught your daughter, Aaron. I remember you told me, but they have these balance bikes now, where they're just like bikes with no pedals.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's 5. Oh my goodness, 5. Angela's correcting me. Don't make fun of me.
What happened? Oh my god.
5, 6, 1 is 6. It's about to be 7. It's all the same.
How are you such a successful businessman when you don't even remember these numbers?
Well, the difference between 5 million and 6 million is like
it's just change at that point, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, these balance bikes are crazy because they just don't have pedals, but they learn how to like balance. And so once you put the pedals on, it's just a matter of finding the pedals.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that makes sense.
Kind of cool. Let's see here. If you guys have any questions also, I'm sure you guys will. Super chats are always welcome because it kind of highlights it here. You can, give a buck. Doesn't matter. It just makes it easier for us to see, and it helps, helps with the channel a little bit.
Helps the channel. Yeah, $1, $2. Always feel a little bit weird like saying if you want to do super chats, but let's be real, like it helps. And it kind of, for me at least, it's somewhat motivating. It's like, all right, people like care enough to like, want to see you succeed. They'll throw a couple bucks in your way just because they're appreciative. So if y'all want to do that, hey, that's cool. If not,
it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing. And sometimes when I go onto another content creator's live stream and I see them, I always make sure to just throw in a few bucks because it's just encouraging to see that people appreciate. I've been thinking about making videos lately. Some of my videos, they're not really hits lately.
Yeah.
You got the hits, Aaron. Actually, you got the formula. I don't know what you're doing, but
I think it's
numbers, man.
I think it's honestly, dude. I mean, I don't know how I feel about saying this publicly. I think I have an understanding of why. I'm curious if it'll keep going. So
you think you understand why?
No, I think a lot of people are just like happy to see me happy again, and they're like, cool, like Aaron's back doing reviews through his divorce. Because I'm willing to bet a lot of people who watch my videos or have probably been through it, and they're like, maybe I'm giving humans too much credit, but I look at it from the humanistic point of view, right? Like people are like, that's cool. Like I want to see him do better, so I'm gonna watch his stuff now. But we'll see. Maybe it'll keep going. But it is kind of cool, man, like to see some videos like, to do well. Cause I don't know. I have some videos that do terribly, but then most of them are doing pretty good for my channel at least. So I'm happy. Like it's cool. I feel like people are actually like, they care. So makes me feel like I'm doing something worthwhile now.
I think so. I think maybe it is part of that human thing. I mean, it's kind of like a comeback story, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we're all rooting for you. Like in the last video, like you come in and you look all happy. You look like super happy to do this. Like it looked like you were giggling before you even like press record. I don't know what you were laughing at.
I don't even know which one it was. Was it the
JBL? Was the blue speaker.
The blue speakers?
You just popped in.
I may have been, man. I don't even know. Those, dude, I'm telling you though, the live videos are so much easier for me to do, but the picture quality is terrible. So I'm hoping that my fiber internet is supposed to be installed this week, and I'm hoping that will fix things because, when I do the live ones, like if I mess up, I messed up. Like just keep going, right? But what happens for me is when I edit videos, I'm already in my head, like trying not to mess up because I don't want to have to edit, right? So when I mess up, I'm like, crap, there's strike one. And then I'm just waiting for the next mess up. And then I think of how all of this work now has become exponentially larger because I started off not having to edit. You ever had those teachers that start you off with a 100 and they're like, okay, we're going to deduct points. We're not going to let you earn points. We're going to assume that you're doing great. And then it's up to you to maintain that greatness. So when I do these videos, I'm like, I'm starting off at 100. And every time I slip up, I'm like, now I got to edit that. Now I got to edit that. And then, so the live videos don't take that. If I mess something up, I just keep going and nobody cares, right?
So what do you start off with, a C or an F? What do you start off with when you do a live stream? What is, in your mind, you're starting off where?
I start off with a live stream. I start off with a C.
Okay.
Yeah. I can make it better. I can make it worse. But the thing about those live streams is once you like mess up your words or something, that's it. Like you can't edit that out. So you just keep going. You just keep talking. You push through it. And I love them because when I'm done, I'm done. There's no the stress. Like, got to make sure I shoot this video and then I've got to edit it and it's got to look pretty decent. And I don't know that the live streams get a whole lot less views than the real ones, but they're a lot easier on me. I'll tell you that much.
I think you found a formula that works for you because, your videos are typically not B-roll heavy anyway. You're showing something from a screen, and it just kind of suits you to do it in this kind of long format where, people can ask you questions maybe.
Yeah, it's fun. I like doing that. Yeah.
So that's really good, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, my videos haven't been popping off and it's okay.
Do you have any idea why though? Like, is it just like whatever it is that you're recording or?
I do. I was talking
the content, I should say.
Yeah, I was talking to I don't know if you watch his channel Caleb Pike at DSLR Video Shooter.
No.
He has like 700,000 subscribers, so he's doing something right. Anyway, I talked to him this morning because he had some questions about some audio stuff. So yeah, talk to him. I'm like, hey man, what do you think about this? He's like, just do what interests you, because like the problem with me is I'm into some like really kind of, I don't know if it's advanced, but more niche stuff than even just audio.
Yeah.
Like we have audio and then I get into this DSP stuff like on another level. Like last night I was up till, I don't know, 8 a.m. I should have been in bed by like 12, but instead 8 a.m. because I rooted this Android tablet and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could use Magic Beans to like tune the worst little tiniest speakers ever.
Yeah.
And of course, you can push them to the limit because they can't produce any bass. Mm-hmm. But it's a good test to see if Magic Beans is, providing the right cutoff frequency, things like that. Like it's just the worst case scenario. Yeah. But these guys with a niche or niche, I'm gonna say niche forever. Whatever. But so that's the stuff I'm into. Now, if I made a video about that, you know how many people would be interested in that?
Yeah.
Like, so what am I to do? I can either make a video that I'm not so interested in, but I know other people are interested in. Yeah. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I hear you, man. Sometimes I feel like I do a lot of work for these videos and there's like nobody watches it. And then other times I'm like, I can't believe that many people watched it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have hits and then sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
So, but that I did like a top 5 video because people have been asking me to do it for a long time, and I thought, 3 years in, I think it's time I can do a top 5 of like my favorite speakers. So I did, and man, it took off. Like, I mean, it's got like 30,000 not subscribers, views on it, which is a lot for my channel. And for other channels, that's like what they get on a regular, you know, that's what they get for just sitting down and talking in front of the camera. But I'll take it. I don't care.
Yeah. So go ahead. Continue.
I was just going to say, and after I did that, I had a lot of people like, would you do a top 5 that's this, this, and this? And I'm like, okay, I get that the formula is a top 5 in comparisons. Those are the ones that are going to get watched. But I have to balance that with like not looking like I'm just trying to cheese it up and just trying, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's tough, dude. Like, we both know, you and I know how to play the YouTube game, right? But there's a lot of integrity, at least in my opinion, in not going down that rabbit hole all the way. I think there's a reasonable amount. Like, if I can justify doing, I think I'm going to do one that's like top 5 under 2,500 because that's a common one that I'm asked. But so I can justify that. But I don't want to get into where it's a top 5 every 3 months because I know other guys who do it, and every time they do it, I lose a little bit more respect for them. In all seriousness, I really do.
I was thinking about this earlier, right? So think about who would be the one criticizing your top 5? Probably other content creators.
Maybe, yeah.
Right? And so, but why though? Like, is there an incentive for you to not want to do, for them to tell you it's not cool to do top 5, and then they're going to do top 5?
Yeah.
You know, who's the one criticizing you at the end of the day? Because if 30,000 people are watching, they're saying, "Hey, I like it."
It's literally one person, and you know who it is.
Well,
and he called it. Well, I got people telling me that this guy was calling it a what's the word? Clickbait. And I'm like, not really, because clickbait to me, the definition of clickbait is something that gets you to watch, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the topic of the video, right? That's the definition of bait. But I think if your title matches your content, then it's not clickbait. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is just some YouTube people kind of talking about their struggles for everybody else wondering.
I guess it's kind of like,
why do I
know
care?
What you're talking about. First of all, I know what you're talking about. But if people like it, it's kind of like, I don't know who are you going to listen to? Because if people are watching it, then obviously somebody likes it. You know, nobody forced them to watch it. I think it has to do more with the algorithm. So the only thing I'm worried about is with all this AI stuff, right? You see some of those videos. You see some videos where, you know, it starts scrubbing, like, you know, and it's just an AI voice, and it's doing its own top 5. Well, where do you think it's going to get its information from?
Yeah,
probably going to it's going to get it from your video now.
Yeah, and other content.
Your video, it's going to get the text, and now it's going to kind of do that in its own way. And so, at least mine, nobody wants to copy my videos. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so Sean Olive,
any views.
Yeah, kind of getting somewhat actually back on topic for the people who might be bored listening to us.
Yeah, sorry about this.
Sean Olive, who I don't know if anybody, most people here probably know who he is, but for some of you who don't, he's kind of like the guy who came up with the Harman curve for headphones through a lot of research. He came up with how to more accurately predict people's likelihood of enjoying a speaker based on its objective performance, which in my experience works very well. Again, through actual research of having people come and listen, blind ABX testing, and then taking the parameters and characteristics of these different speakers, measuring them, and trying to figure out like what matches a preference and how we can, like predict people's enjoyment of a speaker, right? So Sean Olive posted on Twitter a few days ago that with AI taking over, I say taking over, with AI becoming more popular, that he thinks that what it could possibly do is kind of boot out the subjective only reviewers, right? Because that's who AI's competition is. Because he even tagged me, and this is how I know he saw it, or how I saw it is he said, but they can't do what people like Aaron does, where I'm providing objective data. Like AI can't do that. Now, somebody could feed AI that data, but that would have to be somebody like, let's say Linus Tech Tips goes out and buys a clippable near field scanner, which, hey, maybe he will, I don't know. And then he fed it to AI, you know, but that somebody would have to go and invest the money. And I just don't see anybody ever going that route, going and investing the money in a clipple and providing measurements and then feeding it to some kind of AI thing to create videos. I don't see that happening. So, in my opinion, I actually see me being positioned pretty well in that regard to where if AI does come over and start taking place of some of these subjective only reviewers, tough beans for them, but I'm good.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. You would think that AI would actually be good at the data part.
You would think it's got to get it from somewhere. That's the thing, right?
Well, here's what I found.
If it steals it from me, I'm copywriting that every single time, by the way. I'm just letting you know straight up. If people start using my data to make money off of me, off of my hard work, even though I've not monetized it in the way that I could, I'm copyright striking them every single time. If somebody wants to use my data and talk about something, that's different. And I've had people reach out and ask if they can do that, and I'm cool with it. But what I'm saying is if a channel goes out and it uses my data and Amir's data, and they try to generate stuff off of that, I'm copywriting that every time, and I will go after them by all force of the law if I can. I'm just saying. Because I don't do this stuff for people to take my work and my effort. I'm talking hundreds of hours, thousands, tens of thousands of hours so far in all this.
So here's something that's kind of interesting. If you ever played with Chat GPT, I was trying to use it to kind of like I need to compare a bunch of subwoofers, right? And so I figured this would be a good way for me to kind of like make a chart. That's a simple thing. Like I don't want to manually type in this stuff. I already came up with it. I have the data, right? So it's like, here's the data. Just put it in a nice chart. That seems simple enough. But then you'll notice if you ask it a few more questions and it starts making changes to the chart, it'll start making up like numbers that are like, that is not the right. That's the wrong number. Like that spec is incorrect now.
That's crazy.
Like you just made up that spec.
That is crazy.
So it's good at like synthesizing words, but when it comes to data, the data has to be like, don't touch the data, reformat it or whatever, but don't touch the values. And it does. It'll start to change stuff up. So that's kind of weird. So maybe it wouldn't be good at aggregating facts.
Yeah, anyway. No, for sure. Well, and I've used, you told me about using AI to pull but me providing the transcript to Chat GPT, and I've been doing that with some of my videos lately to dump the text of my videos into my written reviews, and dude, that makes my life so much easier. For real, like you showing me that has saved me so much time. But I still sometimes it'll say the reviewer liked blah blah blah, and I'm like, get out of here, And
the reviewer is me.
Yeah, exactly. Find and replace the reviewer with I.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The way I kind of see it is not like it's. I look at it as a language model where, having to put words together to explain your idea. Sometimes the words themselves are actually just filler. The thes and all that stuff, so it makes sense to another human being.
Yeah.
If you could speak in a form like a computer where it's just data, well, we have that already. Here's the graph, blah, blah, So in a way, it's kind of just a way to communicate it. It's kind of like my mind. I have it all compressed. It's like in a zip format. Here you go. Expand it out so it's readable for everybody else.
Right.
That's
sure.
all.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's making up stuff that's like critical.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's and you've listened to Dennis and God help me. Yeah, Brent. God, I was like, my mind just went blank. I blame it on the back pain. So their past few podcasts, they've touched on AI like leading the charge in reviews. And there's actually, if I've Googled a few times different speakers, and there's this website, I can't remember the name of it now, but I think somebody behind it is using AI to go and pull specs from all these different sites, and it's putting them together, and it's like comparing speaker versus speaker based on the manufacturer spec at least. And I thought, man, and it's just affiliate marketing. Like, in all honesty, from the perspective of generating income, it's so freaking brilliant, man. I'm sure it took a lot of time to go in there and write the code for it, but once they got everything set up, it's probably just routine maintenance, like every once in a while I have to go and change the code, and they're just pulling affiliate links in. So people will say, I'm interested in this speaker versus this speaker. They'll Google it. It'll be one of the top 3 to show up. They'll click that link. It'll have the specs, and then they'll have an affiliate link down there. And that person will say, okay, yeah, I want this one. Then they'll click the link, go buy it, and they're done. Whoever's behind that, I don't know how much money they're making, but they're making a lot of passive income. I know they are, because I know, like, when I review speakers, if it's a one that people are really excited about and they click through one of my affiliate links, that earns me a little bit. And I'm a itty bitty little channel. I'm not a top 3 in Google searches, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that is interesting about AI.
Hey, speaking of which, you didn't mention it when you're talking about Sean Olive, but he gave you a nice shout out on LinkedIn. I don't know where else it was, but he said, like, you set the standard for how speaker reviews should be done. Did you see that?
I did. Yeah. I actually screenshot it.
That's a big deal.
Listen, I screenshot it and sent it to my mom. Like, what can I say? I didn't send it to nobody else because I didn't want to be like, oh, I got a big head. But for real, I was like, man, that's awesome. You know, like, just respect of my peers is the biggest thing to me. You know, when I came on and joined you guys at Daily HiFi a few years back, I was legit excited because, like, you know, I watched you guys and it was cool to be accepted by the community. And so, yeah, I definitely screenshot it and sent it to my mom. I was like, check this out.
I think we need that sometimes, though, because we do get it the opposite sometimes.
Yeah.
From either other content creators or other viewers who are fans of other content creators, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, it's you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
You know, people are always, I was just listening to this thing, completely unrelated, but this guy said, people are always going to doubt you in life.
Yeah.
That's part of life, but proving them wrong is also a part of life. So it's like, it's both there. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
What else we got? What are you guys saying in the chats here? I see.
Yeah, they're talking about M-Wave. So M-Wave went down this week, and we should have. Did Tim go? I don't know.
No, you know what? So I saw Paul who's sending me photos. I saw Paul. I saw Scott. I saw let's see, Ron. I haven't seen Ron in a while, but yeah, Ron was there. Chuck. Who else was there? Ike.
Ike was there.
Looked like you were having a good time. I think, I don't know. Paul was telling me that he was being the bad influence.
I'm not.
You know, yeah. To me, that's super cool because these after shows. Here's a quick plug. So, Perks, bit.ly/Daily HiFi Crew, and we have these after shows where it doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem like much. We're just there talking, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
But we hang out for quite a while. And so when an event like this happens, you meet these people in person and it's just like, it's not so weird. Like, I've talked to you for hours already, on a video. And that's kind of what we do there. So I was happy to see that, everybody there in person together, like having a good time. Scott in the background. Woo!
Yeah, I
don't even know if they were at the actual event. They looked like they were out. They looked like they were out drinking somewhere or something. I don't know.
I was supposed to go, but then I bailed out because I was going to go to it's called Santa Claus Land in Indiana, and it's about 45 minutes from where I was born, but it's a theme park there. But wound up not going because the weather was supposed to get bad, and I blew out my back. So we're going to try to go this weekend if I can drive by then.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad that I decided not to go for that reason, because I was going to drive up there to Kansas, and it was going to be like an 8-hour drive. And there's no way, dude, I would have never made it 30 minutes. I can barely make it 30 minutes to work right now as my back hurts.
Ooh, man.
Yeah, Randall, I will be in the after show. I would be curious to know. I'm sure I know why you're asking. So I'd be curious to know your thoughts. And for what it's worth, to anybody that might be in the North Carolina area, there's the Audio Advice Live in Raleigh that'll be going on the weekend of the 4th. I think it might be the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but I can't remember the exact dates. And if you guys are in that area, definitely make sure to come out at least like one of the days, because it's a good time. It's pretty laid back. It's just an audio event. First one I ever went to was last year, and I enjoyed it. And it was nice. And if you happen to go and you see me, make sure you come up and say, hey. I like meeting people and chatting. So,
Shauna said that he just wants to go.
Yeah.
Hang out with you. Well,
Shauna's a madman. So
is that like the thing you were talking about earlier where you start off with an A? Is that a lot of pressure on you?
It's going to trend to a Z really fast. We're not even going to stop at F. We're just going to keep going downhill all the way to Z.
All right.
Yeah, that's another one that I've got to drive to that because the flights are just ridiculous. So I'm hoping that I'll be all right there or in time to be able to drive to that, because I don't know. We'll see.
Man. Well, take it easy. You know what I mean? Like I tell my kids, listen to your body.
Yeah.
You know, to remind them to go to the bathroom. Listen to your body.
Listen to your body if you got to go.
You know what I mean? When you're potty training them, hey, listen to your body. Here's some audio questions. CJ asks, Aaron, what's your preference, dome tweeter or compression driver?
Well, technically it says doom tweeter, so I don't like any tweeter that's.
Is that a new type?
You know, I don't have a tweeter. Yeah, I don't have a favorite, honestly. They both have the pros and cons, you know, so I don't really have a favorite. I think compression drivers might have a little bit more dynamic range. Usually they're in a horn loaded waveguide, and so the directivity is more well controlled typically over like just a tweeter or a flat dome or a dome. I'm sorry, on a flat baffle. And so domes on flat baffles usually will get a little bit, this is generally speaking, we usually get a little bit wider in sound radiation. So that's a plus for me personally. But they're also typically going to have issues with diffraction, where the sound waves that go all around and like hit the edge of the speaker will come reflected back to your listening position, and they'll be a little bit out of phase. So they'll create like a dip on axis. And the more you go off axis, or the more you turn the speaker away from you, the less severe that dip is. But the problem is the difference in direct to reflected sound could be enough to create problems. And usually what I notice is that it results in like a boosted tweeter region, not the overall level, but it's usually between like 4 to 6 kilohertz, depending on the size of the baffle and the tweeter that's back for dome tweeters on a flat baffle. Dome tweeters on a flat baffle usually will start to increase or decrease in radiation a little bit more sooner than a waveguide speaker. And the reason is because they're broader at the lower frequencies, but around like 8 kilohertz for a 1-inch dome tweeter, it'll start to tighten up. So you won't have as much room reflection. It'll be more direct. And that may sound good, but generally what I find is that it results kind of in a less spacious sound. The flip side of that is compression drivers, which are waveguided or horn-loaded waveguided. They will start off a little bit more narrow, and they'll just continue that same consistency throughout. So at the lower tweeter range, the upper mid-range frequencies, they may not be as wide, but they are still sometimes a little bit wider than a dome tweeter on a flat baffle. It just depends.
What's up?
Look at this guy.
Hey.
What does it say here? TD from the ER.
What's
You
up?
okay, man?
They're taking my hey, look at this amazingly large TV over there.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Watch out.
You have to get binoculars.
Hey, it's got Odyssey.
No, it doesn't.
The stickers are on there still.
That's one you've been to before, huh?
Yeah. I'm gonna bring a microphone and Magic Beans this TV.
Definitely should.
When we're done. I'm kind of okay.
That's dedication. Angela says, "What happened? Are you okay? Everything good?" Oh, he's out. I assume that's a yes.
He just got into a drunken bar fight and he cut his finger on a bottle when he smashed it over somebody's head. So
yeah. So Chana is okay. He's okay. He kind of gave us a little bit of info about,
this was planned.
Right. Where is he? Yeah, so everybody just wants to know, are you okay?
Hello?
Everybody wants to know if you're okay. Yeah?
What happened?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Fred said he just flatlined.
I don't know. I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll be back. Yeah, Chana's all right. He said that he was going to have to go take care of something, so he's at a hospital.
So here's a question about the tweeter thing. So maybe Tim can cut that. But here's a question. Would you say that there's an audible difference between like tweeter material? Like when you say beryllium tweeter, is there an inherent, like,
there can be.
It usually sounds like this. Aluminum, it usually sounds like this. Soft dome, are there characteristics that you find are consistent?
Yeah, there can be, but most manufacturers have learned how to deal with that. So that doesn't carry the same way as it used to before.
Okay, so it's not like, you know, you hear some people say, oh, you know, this has a metallic sound.
Yeah,
Because it's
no.
metal. Is that
It's
a
not like
real
that
thing
anymore.
or not?
Yeah, no, like metal domes like will break up a little bit sooner in frequency, and they'll break up a little bit later in frequency, but they'll break up kind of strong. And so you would hear those breakups. And so that's where that comes from, right? People are like, oh, a metal dome sound X, Y, or Z. Well, they used to back when designers couldn't work around the issues, or they couldn't maybe break up the resonances and the modal issues and push them out a little bit further in frequency. But it's really not like that anymore. So when people say that now, it's just based on like how things used to be, right? Like people sometimes will still say that horn speakers are, that's what I'm looking for here.
Horny.
Harsh.
Yeah.
Hornish.
They're horny. You're right. Yeah. But it's not like that anymore, because what that came from is like back in the day when you would see like the horn systems, like they'd be a big old waveguide at a ballpark, and all you hear like, right? They don't sound like that anymore, but people still have that in their head that they think that they do. And in my experience, and this is the truth, a lot of people who say like, well, metal tweeters sound like this or horn speakers sound like this, it's either they're older and that's how it used to sound for real, and they just don't know that speakers have changed and gotten better, or they're too new to understand that they don't need to listen to the people who are still stuck in the past. And that's really what I've experienced.
So I posted this article on my channel. Let's see. What's up, Chana? Oh,
hey,
I'm coming to help
you
you.
hear us now?
I'm gonna get it out.
Yeah, you're gonna cut that thing out of me, huh?
Yeah.
Hopefully I can. This will happen in a couple hours. We've been at the ER for like 2 hours, and they're like, "Oh, somebody came in with some serious issues, so we got bumped down the list." Like,
Dude, did you not tell them a gerbil is a serious issue?
Yeah,
it was ferret this time.
If it was who's that?
The
Dude?
tail is still there.
If it was Richard Gere, they would have taken care of Richard Gere right away. But they saw Techno Daddy's like,
Oh yeah, he could wait.
Yeah.
But to talk about what you're like, I definitely noticed the difference going from the horn speaker to that electrostat.
Yeah.
So, you know, different. I definitely think, like, I wouldn't say like if it's an aluminum, it sounds more metallic or anything like that. But there is definitely, especially with, I notice it more with female voices and organic instruments, violins, you know, a lot of stringed instruments. Like there's like more of a delicate quality to them going from the horn to the electrostat, and a little bit, and it's slightly, it's harder to hear. It's definitely hard to hear, but there is a difference between the materials when they're using them. You know, what's an AMT or a ribbon, like an actual ribbon.
Right.
Not a sandwich ribbon, whatever. Yeah, sandwich would be good. I haven't eaten anything all day.
Would be good.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you in that. Like if you're talking about especially like different designs, because implementation is key. But I was thinking more along the lines of like, if you took this speaker and you put a metal dome tweeter in it, and then you switch it out with a silk cloth tweeter or something like that, then on its own, yeah, it could sound different. But if somebody goes in and says, well, there's a peak here, and we're going to put a notch filter at like 10K or something, then that issue is resolved. So it's not really as much of an issue as it might have been back in the day when they didn't do that kind of stuff.
They'd also have to redesign the crossover for that material as well.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Majority of the two-way speakers I've seen and reviewed that have an aluminum tweeter, the crossover is lower, like closer, like anywhere in between 1,800 to 2,000, whereas like the Andrew Jones Carinas that I heard at CES, he's like, oh yeah, 2,500 or 2,400 is the crossover point for those due to the material, you know.
So stuff like that definitely matters.
So the interesting thing is that a lot of the differences that you see are obvious in a frequency response graph. Like this is something basic, like the Martin Logans that you had before, Chana, like they really did measure differently because of the way it interacted with your room, right? So it wasn't like, oh, you know, I could tell because of the property. No, it was just actually like easy to measure, you know?
Right. It wasn't something subjective like, the angels are a little bit louder.
Yeah,
Right.
pretty obviously different in the way it interacted with your room. Now, I posted an article on my channel where these researchers were trying to kind of like break down music and sounds into different kind of like categories, and I thought it was interesting in that I thought maybe it could be used as a way to maybe a different way to review speakers, instead of the typical terminology that we use. Let me see if I could find my article. So I'll post this in this link here first. Okay, so there's a link, but let me see if I can post my article or my post. Second. Boom, boom. Okay. So as a breakdown, they kind of break it down like this: signs, and they describe it as kind of like a whistle, like a pure sine, clean sound, no other sounds except for that particular sine wave.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I interpreted that as lack of resonance or audible distortion. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's important in a speaker, and perhaps certain materials do have a little bit more resonance or some kind of like harmonics, maybe, but it's not that pure sine. I don't know. Maybe that's what people are hearing. I'm trying to understand what some of these golden ear people hear, or maybe what they're describing, and just in a different way. Noise, right? So I look at that as the kind of just the frequency response, the tonality, timbre, and then clicks, which I thought was interesting, where they're just seeing like the impulse, kind of like the click when you say something, whatever,
right,
or when you hit something. And I look at that as a dynamic range or efficiency. What would you say about that as far as like, is that a good way to analyze a loudspeaker in those terms? It's a little different, I guess.
Sure.
No, you don't buy it.
No, I mean, I guess it's one kind of makes sense. I see what they're talking about.
I guess to me, the interesting one was the signs, like looking at it as, when you break it down, like how well can this speaker produce a clean sound? I don't know what is the measurement for that?
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody about like how we do. I was explaining to them like what I do when I measure speakers, and I was like, if you take a known tone and it's 200 hertz and you try to reproduce that on the speaker, if the speaker is accurate, then it reproduces that 200 hertz at the same amplitude. It doesn't have like any deviation, doesn't add more, it doesn't take away anything. So really, when you do a test, that's all it is. It's just tones, right? So that's why it relates to music, because music are tones too, right? Sine waves, square waves, all sorts of waves.
Well, yeah. How about this kind of well, I don't know if one of your measurements probably does this already, but let's say you take a particular tone and your speaker should only play that one tone, but it might actually excite some other harmonics.
Yeah, that's true.
Unwanted.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if it sounds good, whatever, but those are unwanted. You're only playing one tone, but it's playing these other tones.
I mean, you can like use an oscilloscope and then run like a synthesizer to a pure sine wave, and then once you start adding a filter, you can add those harmonics, or you could take away. So you could probably do it. You just have to have the right equipment.
Right.
So it's just a pure tone as opposed to anything without anything with harmonics or anything like that.
Is there a measurement like that? Let's say you do a sweep, right? So it's doing actually a single tone. It sounds like a sweep to us. You're right? Seeing it as one tone, next tone, next tone.
Yeah.
And so when it does each one, is there a measurement that shows how clean it does it without introducing any other frequencies?
I think you'd have to run that sweep through an oscilloscope, and as long as the line, because it'll show you a full-on perfect sine wave. If you send it a perfect sine wave, it'll show it. And as soon as it introduces whatever the signal is, introduces any kind of harmonics or any kind of anything, you'll see it. Yeah. I don't know if you can actually, I mean, I guess it's a way of measuring it, but I don't know
But it makes sense though, right? Like if you
Yeah.
play every single tone, a perfect speaker should play every single tone without any additional tones. It should just play that one singular tone. And so I can't do that.
So that what you're talking about would be
all the noise at the same time. So do you do tests like that?
Well, that would be like a distortion test. So a frequency response, it's like listening for that frequency. Like as it sweeps, it's like simultaneously listening for that frequency, and it can record it. It says, this is the frequency I'm playing, and this is how loud it is. But then what you're talking about would be like distortion testing.
Yeah.
Any other thing?
Is that what distortion testing actually shows?
Right. Yeah. Because a distortion test, depending on how you run it, will be like a sweep, but it'll also say, I'm also picking up this frequency, or at this level, right? And it's a harmonic. It's a second harmonic of this tone, or it's a third harmonic of this tone, right? So if you play 1 kilohertz, the second harmonic, it says, I'm also picking up 2 kilohertz. So it adds that to its harmonic
could also
distortion.
pick up half that too, 500.
Yeah, you could do intermodulated distortions as well, for sure. Yeah.
And somebody in the chat, they were saying that depends on how pure the signal is too, right? So there's also, you have to have something like perfect.
That's pretty easy though, right? Getting a clean tone.
I mean, and any synthesizer. I got like 6 synthesizers in the house. They can all do that.
Yeah. So,
hey, doctor's here. Gotta go.
Okay. See you later. So yeah, to me, that's cool. It's kind of easy to get the right tone, electronically. Is that a new knife? Is that what you're showing off?
No. Again, I just have it. I'm sitting here playing with it. I'm probably going to cut myself. But
okay.
Sorry. I get distracted easily.
So anyway, I just kind of thought that might be interesting. So when you do these distortion tests, I would kind of be curious, because what I've seen from your videos is you say, okay, this is the threshold where, this is fine.
Yeah.
But what would happen? What would happen if you were to play music, and if there was some way to only play the harmonics or the distortion by itself?
So you can't really do that, because whatever you are listening to is going to create its own harmonics, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. You can't only play back the distortion. Like you can play around with the levels of distortion in signal by changing or adding more or somehow taking away. But whatever speaker you're listening through or headphones that you're listening to is still going to have its own distortion. The easiest way to probably get around it is just to listen at really low levels where the distortion from the speaker is so low that it's not even going to be audible at all, right?
Yeah. But I was wondering if a way to digitally subtract it,
Yeah, I actually sent an email to Clipple in 2012 with an idea that's similar to that. It's kind of funny that you say that, because when I sent it, I was like, they're going to think I'm an idiot, I don't even remember what they said back to me, because I thought I'd figured something out, man. I can't remember what it was now, but it was basically like, is there a way that once I measure the speaker and know where the distortion is, can I somehow take it out of the next measurement? But then I started thinking, I was like, I can't do that, because the speaker's still going to have its own distortion. So after I sent that email, I was like,
yeah, okay. So
no, I mean, you're not saying the same thing. I know that, but it just reminded me of that email I sent.
So we both use Isotope RX, and then Isotope, you can use these. It's a software to kind of clean up audio, and so you can take out reverb, you can take out noise, things like that. But there's no feature there where it says like only play the noise.
Yeah, it takes like the vocals and stuff like that out.
Well, let's say if you take out the reverb from the sound. Okay. There's an option you can click it, and it does the inverse where it'll only play the reverb that it took out. That's so cool. Yeah, there's definitely ways to do that. But the question would be more so that, is there an audible difference between speakers that are maybe they have like less harmonics, or just smoother?
Dude, that's a whole area of study that people have argued to death. And you can go do your own listening test. Clipple has a page where you can go and do your own listening test, where they'll add in different distortion characteristics, like distortion from let's think here, like the spider of a drive unit, or distortion from poor excursion linearity, so like the motor force, right? Or distortion from inductance, how that's more prevalent in the mid-range area than it is the lower bass area, and how that's normally the one that you hear the most. And so there's actually studies on it. And then there's the whole Gedley metric about the audibility of such distortions and how everything is weighted. And so, I mean, but ultimately, there's nothing that says, yea, verily, this is the level of distortion. Like, you're going to hear it if it's this, because it depends on the content. It depends on the noise factor of your room. You know, like if you have really low noise floor or higher noise floor, you're obviously not going to pick up on certain things. Your ability to hear distortions is a factor as well. Like, how trained are you? So for me, what I've found is 3% usually is kind of like, it's a general guideline. And I would say if the distortion is over 3% in harmonic distortion or multi-tone distortion, then that might be an area that might cause you to give pause on a purchase for a speaker, right? Especially if you're looking at two speakers and they're very similar in performance, same price, you know, and one has distortion that is like 10% at this output level and the other one has 3%. Well, you probably want to buy the one that has lower distortion, right? Like, to me, that's a metric that isn't necessarily grounded in, you're definitely going to hear this because you got all these other factors, but it's a metric that helps you better understand and compare between two different products. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It just, I'm always curious about what's audible. So like the distortion that we're talking about, is the hiss that's coming from an amplifier, is that higher relative to the distortion that we're talking about in most cases? Like, you know, I hate amplifier hiss.
Oh, I hate it. Yeah.
It annoys me.
Right.
So what is that level compared to the distortion that we're talking about at, let's say, 3% that you're saying? Yeah. And of course, this is different because an amplifier would have that hiss with no sound playing out of it.
Right.
Real
yeah.
obvious.
So I hear you. So that actually is one thing that I wish amplifier reviewers would do, is instead of just giving me the SINAD or SINAD value, like test noise and distortion separately. Because you could, like you said, you can have a speaker maybe that just for whatever reason has an amplifier that has high noise floor, right? But relative to that, the distortion is really low. So as soon as you plug the amp on, just like you said, it's a perfect example. As soon as you plug the amp in, you got it attached to maybe a high sensitivity speaker. The distortion, there's no distortion because it's not playing anything. But for whatever reason, that amp is noisy, right? There's something in the chain that makes it noisy. So all you hear is coming through your speakers. And it's so freaking annoying. So I'm sure,
you know, all the smarter folks have the answers. It's just, if I have my fan on at a very low volume, I can tell that it's on. If I really wanted to listen critically to like details in music, I should probably turn the fan on.
Turn it off. Yeah. For sure.
And I don't know what level that is in comparison to other distortion. Yeah. You know, I don't really measure distortion that much, but it just kind of got me thinking because, like I'm telling you, I'm doing ridiculous stuff with DSP on a tablet.
Yeah.
Right. And so the speaker on this tablet that I was DSPing, it rolls off seriously about 450 hertz, and then that's all the speaker can do. But of course, you know, I wanted to see what it could do. Like, let me bump up 100 hertz and see if I can hear that.
Yeah.
Forcing it to do it, you know? And it's way down. I would say if I were to look at the graph, maybe it's 30 dB down. Right. And of course, like, you know, I bump that up. I shouldn't be able to notice that much when I'm playing music. But in the bass, I can tell when you bump it up a little bit. Even it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of got me thinking, what is audible? And maybe it's in the bass where you start noticing more.
Yeah. So my guess if you're talking like distortion. Yeah, my guess is it's probably a driver that doesn't have much excursion at all. So you're creating some kind of modulated distortion effects, and those are audible in the mid-range.
They start affecting. Yeah.
So that's the really interesting stuff to me. So harmonic distortion doesn't tell you that, but multi-tone distortion and intermodulated distortion will tell you that as well. But I just skip intermod and I just go straight to multi-tone because multi-tone to me is more important. And I did a video on that like a year and a half ago, and I provided sound clips. And you can definitely tell, like at really low levels of multi-tone distortion, you can't really tell, right? But then when you get to the point in my testing, it was like 3%. When you get to that level, you can definitely tell a difference. But if you like graduate into it, it's not like you're able to tell. But if you go in A/B really quickly, this level versus this level distortion, and I level match the signals, right? So I didn't change anything except for just the overall level. So when I play it back, you hear low distortion versus high distortion at the same sound level, but you hear that increased mid-range distortion from the multi-tone distortion from that woofer going crazy, and overexerting it, things like that. And it's definitely audible. It sounds like everything is really grainy. That's the best way I can describe it.
It's all related to the stuff we were talking about earlier about the tweeter material, things like that. Because I had those Focal Stellia headphones that are beryllium. Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, man, it sounds like it's whistling when it does the high frequencies. Ooh. Like it sounds not in a bad way. It sounded so smooth, like it could do the high frequencies so easily.
Yeah.
I could EQ another speaker where like, oh, it's about the same, but it wasn't doing it with ease. And I'm like, oh, I hate that I sound so audiophile-y, in describing this. I don't know how else to do it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Sometimes I'm the same way. I mean, dude, I just listened to a pair of speakers a few days ago, and I was like, they sound pretty nice. And in my notes, I wrote a couple pros and cons. And I think, one of the cons that I put, like, I think I said maybe like 2 to 3 kilohertz was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. It seems like something's not quite right there. But overall, I like the speaker, right? Yeah. And the bass output was good. And the ability for it to get loud, it's a 6.5-inch mid-woofer bookshelf speakers. Actually, I don't know if you can, no, hold on, this way. There. Hold on.
I don't know. I see a ELAC. What is it?
So the Don Audio Special 40s.
See? Dyn Audio.
Yeah, Don Audio. Hold on.
All right. I haven't seen a Dyn Audio actually in a while.
Yeah, so I got those from a car audio friend of mine who I posted up in my Facebook group. Hey, if anybody's got any Don Audio speakers, please let me know. And he's a dealer for them and some other brands. He's like, yeah, what you want? And I was like, whatever you can send me. He's like, I'll send you these. So anyway, I listened to them, and I listened sighted, and I don't have necessarily an affinity for Don Audio. Some of their stuff I think is completely overpriced. And then some stuff I think is really good, but still expensive, but worth it. If you've got the extra money. Like I used to run some Don Audio mids in my car, $800 per pair at dealer price, right? I had the hookup, so I was able to get them for less. But I don't know necessarily that they were much better than a set of $200 ScanSpeak full range drivers, really, that like 4-inch drivers. So yeah, they're sighted. Listening test is what I'm getting to. But I was like, I kind of like these speakers, and then I put them on the machine and I saw the results and I was like, ooh. So that one, it's not great. Not great. And it made me think like, okay, so why did I like this speaker? And what I think, and this is just my opinion, is that the problems with the speakers linearity, namely, there's a couple pretty large dips. And dips don't seem to be a problem. Like, I don't know if you've run into that, but when there's a dip, okay. If there's a spike or a strong peak or something, then I'm going to hear that. But when there's a dip, it's just something's not there.
I think it depends on how wide. I look at it as a ratio of like, because a dip means that the rest is a peak. If you think about it.
No, for sure. It's all relative. It's all relative. Yeah. I've said that a number of times. Like it's all relative. And so like
curves on a lady, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
There's curved out and in, you know what I mean?
Right. And if there's a lady behind her and she's just a square or a big rectangle, then you're going to see more of her, like
there's a shape.
I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But anyway, my point was to say that this speaker does not measure great, but I still enjoy it. And I think the reason I enjoy it is because there wasn't anything that stood out negatively about it. So when I went back and listened to it again and filled in some of the peaks or the dips, it sounded better, but
yeah,
could have been worse.
So
she's coming to smack you on your head because you forgot your daughter's age.
Yeah, I know. It's all right.
What's up?
She's getting the vacuum.
Yeah, that's right.
What I was gonna say, I forgot.
How handsome you think I am? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So here's that measurement of this tablet speaker, because I'm sure everybody's dying to see it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I know. I gotta do it. I have to. This is a little Samsung Galaxy tablet, but this is after I EQ'd it. Because before it looks pretty ridiculous. I think.
It's actually a tablet. Okay.
It's a tablet.
Okay.
That's a response of it. You know, it has this
naturally
like, crazy peak.
Wow.
You see that one?
I like that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, I was EQing it, and so you can see what I was doing. I was trying to extend the bass out over here.
Yeah.
Normal roll off is probably, like I was saying, like 450. I'm being generous. But then I went, you know what? Let me just go nuts. What happens if I keep it at a super low volume and just do this? I forced it, right? And just let's see what happens. And it was making some pretty bad noises.
Oh,
But what was interesting here was these changes here. You see this green line. Let me get this off the screen for a second. But you see this green one here? How below here, I could bump up 100 hertz easily, you know? And you would think that's so far down compared to this that it's like, who cares? Like, don't even bother. But I could hear it. When you're playing music, you can hear, oh, it's making, it sounds different.
I wonder if that's, I don't know how these things are constructed. I'm just curious. I wonder if those speakers, if there's any like kind of tactile speakers built into these too, like at some frequency, it makes the frame resonate. I mean, probably not, but I don't know.
Yeah. So you know, anything at low volume can make bass. It just depends on the volume, right? So if I were to put my ear to this and at low volume, I'm like, oh, that sounds like bass, you know? So anyway, the interesting thing was just that even changing bass down here, that was, look at it, minus 25 relative. Oh, this is, here's 0, 30, minus 30. Bumping it up a few notches here was audible.
Right.
And that was kind of surprising. I don't know if it should be surprising, but I was expecting to not hear that difference, but I could. A little side note, check out this MacBook Pro that I use, the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So, you know, slim profile, but look at this. Here's a near field measurement of the MacBook Pro.
Whoa.
Are you not nuts?
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, because they use dual opposing.
Yeah, okay.
Force canceling drivers in there. And I'm like, this MacBook sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
of course,
that's pretty cool.
It does dynamic stuff, so you turn it up and then it starts tapering that off a lot. Yeah, it's not even here. But yeah, look at that. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, let me get this off the screen. Who cares about little tiny speakers? But
that's
it's
cool.
One of those things where if you test tiny speakers, the same principles apply, but you just start seeing interesting things that you're not used to seeing, you know, measuring normal speakers.
Yeah.
Anyway. What else? Let's answer some questions here. So we got this one. Let's go down the line here. What's your favorite recommendation studio monitor speakers with Bluetooth, please? Nivek.
Man, I don't even know.
Favorite studio monitor speakers with Bluetooth. Those two don't go together, right?
I don't know that I've run into any. So I mean, I was just kind of thinking the like the Klipsch, you know, those are pretty cool. The JBL 4305Ps, I've reviewed those. I think those have Bluetooth, and those are pretty awesome. But if you're going for something maybe a little bit cheaper, something like the Klipsch, the 5s, and then just bring down the high frequency some to even it out, I think that's a good, worthwhile purchase for sure.
Yeah, I think what I would do if I were you is just find a good studio monitor speakers, good like the Kali Audio ones, and then just add Bluetooth to them. You can find like a Bluetooth adapter. I wouldn't necessarily look for one that has Bluetooth as a, you know, as a selling point. You know what I mean? Just find a good one and just put something into it.
And that's true. I mean, honestly, Bluetooth is kind of Bluetooth. I don't know that Bluetooth is, I would consider it really high fidelity. I listen to Bluetooth stuff all the time, so I'm not knocking it at all. But I'm just thinking, like, I wouldn't go into it worrying that you're going to mess up the signal if you make an adapter for Bluetooth either. You know, it's probably going to be just as good as it were if it were native Bluetooth, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, Reverend Slim was saying,
which one?
Would be more like the SVS Prime Wireless or Klipsch the 5s, which I don't have any experience with the Prime Wireless, but
yeah, they're good.
I did mention
they're good.
5. Have you reviewed those?
Yeah, they're good. They have
that. Should I bother to send them an email to ask them, or meh?
They had a weird dip that I asked them about.
Yeah.
And I said, why is there a dip here in the response when you guys are fully active on this? So like you don't have an excuse to have any type of dip, unnecessary dip.
Yeah.
You know, because they use the same tweeter and all the stuff. So very much the same design as their other speakers.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, that is so weird. They never really got back to me on that. But that's the only thing. Other than that, so as far as functionality, SVS is consistent. They make good stuff,
Yeah.
Expensive a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, like is it not the Ultras? What's their lower cost bookshelf speakers? I reviewed those, and I remember like kind of being like, and then I do have a review for their more expensive bookshelves, and I remember thinking they were better, but they're not up to date with like today's quality of speakers. So I assumed that if they were to redo those and make like an MK2, they could make a better version of it, but still not bad. But that's my experience with their speakers so far.
So to me, if you're going to make an active speaker, it really needs to make use of that DSP.
Yeah,
like
100%. Why not?
To buy it and add HDMI and all the features and all that. Okay, so they added HDMI, but I feel like they could have done more with the DSP, like do something crazy with the bass, make it dynamic. I don't know, do something with it. Otherwise, it's kind of like just get their other speakers and get a small class D amp, and you're done.
Yeah, I hear you.
Let's see what else.
Reverend Slim was asking. That's a good question.
Yeah.
For you, was it the Prime Wireless Pros or the original Prime Wireless?
Oh, I have the new ones.
The new ones. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Prime Wireless Pro. Yeah. Let's see what else started here. Raphael says, why don't you guys cover more home theater content stuff instead of mostly setup? Isn't the point of all this to enjoy great Atmos or DTS experiences at the end of the day, be it Blu-ray, streaming, etc.? Why don't we make more?
I don't know. I thought like so I'm more the 2-channel guy of the group, right? Like I've had a home theater and all that stuff. I don't now. So I say that leading into when I joined up with you guys a few years ago, I thought where Raphael's coming from here, I agree with him. Like in the last maybe 1 to 2 months, like the home theater Atmos talk has kind of subsided some, but I think up until then, you guys were heavily talking because I would spend half the time standing here like I ain't got a clue what these dudes are talking about. So
yeah,
but that's why I don't talk HT content because I don't have any HT going on right now.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I thought we talked a lot about home theater content. As far as instead of mostly setup, isn't the point?
Yeah, they're talking about like just Blu-rays and streaming of Blu-rays. Maybe not. I don't know if y'all have really ever done a lot of that.
Home theater content. I don't know. I think other people do that. I'm just not interested in reviewing the actual content. Like if I watch a movie, I'm thinking about the movie. How good is the movie?
Yeah.
I'll leave it to the other guys to analyze. Was it a good mix?
Right. I think so I don't watch Shane Lee's videos because it is, I think, more generated for that, and that's just not my bag. But he might be somebody. And then my buddy who we've had on here, Tech Enthusiasm, Jeremy Pyle.
Does he?
He's got a channel, Tech Enthusiasm, and he does a lot of stuff built around like home theater content. So make sure you check him out. I'll find a link. I'll drop it in the chat, and you can go subscribe to him. He's a good dude too. So,
Bodhi says, I think this is in reference to what we're saying earlier. Like, we know what popular videos what videos are going to be popular, but sometimes you don't always want to do them. He says, you got to do you. We love it. When you love it, it will come through. Personally, I'd watch a video of you calibrating someone's system in real time, at least the first measurement. Yeah, some of this stuff can take a while. So
yeah, maybe the second measurement.
Exciting it would be.
You should do. Hey, no, that's actually a decent idea. If somebody's cool with it, maybe when you get set up to like do your magic beans and it kind of rolls out, maybe you should do like a I don't know if you feel comfortable doing a live stream, but maybe do a video on how you set somebody's system up using that. I'm sure you probably plan to do it anyway, but
I definitely will want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll definitely do that once the app is out. So yeah. But yeah, it's not the funnest thing to watch, right? Because that stuff, when it comes down to it, it's the result that you're after. When you take your car to a mechanic, do you really want to watch all the details of what he's doing, or do you want to just get your car fixed? Most people just want their car fixed. Some people, if you're interested, maybe you will want to see how it's all done, but that's not most people. So that's the tricky thing. It will take a lot of time to make that video, and I don't know how many people would really be that interested, but maybe there's a way. What else we got here? Master Juan says, "You go ahead. You want to read that one?"
No. I was going to say somebody was asking about some harmonic distortion stuff, and I was just mentioning that we had Brent and Dennis on last week. Was that last week?
Yeah, last week. They were also talking about you in their most recent podcast about your review of the Dutch and Dutch 8C. So,
yeah, I went back and listened to that. That was cool. That's interesting to see how the Dutch and Dutch is like, because so they didn't really have a lot of and I think Dennis was the one who was saying it, and it was a very good point. Like, they weren't going to shows. They weren't really repping the brand heavy here in the US, you know?
Yeah.
And so when a friend of mine who is one of their reps and another guy who I don't know, but he was mentioning Dennis as well. When the reps started going to these shows, these big shows and showing off these Dutch and Dutch speakers, everybody's like, "Oh my God, these are amazing." And it's like, yeah, you know?
Yeah.
But I get it. It's hard to hear them. Like, there aren't really dealers, or there weren't, at least at the time when I reviewed them. And the only reason I knew about them was because I'd seen the data and I was like, dang, those look impressive. So that's why I was really interested in getting them. And I happened to talk to the right person and it just worked out.
Yeah. So Master Juan, you want to read that one?
Hey, Aaron, I'm considering building a tower box to house my bookshelves, giving them the appearance of a tower speaker instead of using a regular stand. What do you think? Good or bad idea? I think it's a great idea, first of all. And did we talk about this recently, Joe, in like a live stream? Because I know I've talked about this on a live stream. It may have been one of my own, but I kind of went on like a mini rant talking about, I wish manufacturers would take these bookshelf speakers, don't change it, and just put like a false enclosure like below it and make it look like one big tower. And I actually asked somebody, I don't even want to say who it is because I'll give something away, but I asked a manufacturer about one of their speakers that I quite enjoyed. And I said, "Hey, have you guys ever considered doing this, what Juan is saying?" And he was like, "Let's just say that we've been talking about it." So maybe you might start seeing stuff like that for manufacturers.
All right. So it reminds me of those Wharfdale Lintons that you reviewed, because they came with a stand that hit it perfectly, and you could put the records underneath and it looked nice.
Yeah.
You know, match the wood and all that stuff. You know, I always say stands, people who are trying to save space by using bookshelf speakers, you're not really saving space because you can't put anything underneath them.
Yeah.
You know, so that space is actually been taken up.
Those Wharfdales, you can put some stuff, but to me, the Wharfdale is a perfect example of just sell an empty box by itself and let me set the speaker on top of it so it matches. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's going to cost more money, but that would be cool as heck.
How about if they went the opposite way? What if they're like, here are some mounts so you can hang the speaker from the ceiling? Would you be down for that?
Dude, I don't know if I put it on it'd have to go in the joists. And all I know is that my 2x10 joists or whatever, they better line up at the right positions, because I don't want that speaker falling from the ceiling one day.
Imagine, that's not a bad idea. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's see here. How about this one? I have 3 subwoofers and only 2 subwoofer out. Since, should I label match each subwoofer out or eat subwoofer?
So level match, but I don't know what eat's supposed to be.
I don't know. You shouldn't eat subs, but
that sounds painful.
He's a mid-bass maestro, and he has the spatial calibration toolkit as his thumbnail, so that's awesome. Cool. With Chana's little signature. Yeah.
Let's tell them in tandem. Buy the mini DSP 2x4 HD. Buy the mini DSP 2x4 HD. It's what, $199? Or you can get the 2x4 for $99, right? And at the least, you'll have time delay and level matching capability for all 3. You may not have the same power of EQ and may not have as much delay, right? I think Croson had confirmed once that was like maybe 25 milliseconds of delay for the Pro or the HD and like 10 for the other, something like that. But spend the money. You're a mid-bass maestro, right?
Yeah.
Take your car audio money and use it on a mini DSP 2x4 HD.
Yeah. Yeah. So even in my system, I have the 2 subwoofer outputs. I have 2 subs in my living room, but I just split the one signal just because there's not enough that the AVR can do with the two outputs. It's not like it's just doing levels for the most part.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit of time delay, but when you have 3 now forget it. Get the mini DSP.
That's a new thing for sure.
Let's see here. Okay, so from Bodie, he asked, with multi-QX, can you ditch the mini DSP? And I would say, for the most part, you can, unless you have more than 1 or 2 subs. I'll let it go up to 2 subs. But if you had more than 2 subs, you still want a mini DSP. But if you're talking about the functionality, it makes your AVR like a mini DSP for all of the channels. It becomes a filter bank for every single speaker. So instead of getting a mini DSP DDRC 88A that's like $1,100 or $1,200, gives you 8 channels in and 8 channels out, well, you'd need 2 of those if you wanted to do Atmos. So you might as well just spend the $200 on multi-QX, and now you can do that for all your speakers. But you still may want a mini DSP for your subs.
Yeah.
Let's see. Fred says Chana's so smart when he's in the ER. Okay.
Yeah. He's a doctor now.
This one makes sense. Chris Hamilton says active speakers should allow you to tweak their DSP. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like even if it's an advanced, but the thing is, you got to be able to get into it. So they'd have to build the software around it for you to be able to get into it. So there's that. Like there's a cost involved, either software or like a GUI, on your phone. So I would think that would be the first major hurdle is they got to have somebody to do that. And I don't know if people want to do that stuff.
Yeah, they got to make it easy. Otherwise, they're just gonna create a headache for themselves.
Right.
Because people are gonna mess it up. They're gonna do something weird.
People think they know better, myself included. They don't know what they're doing. I'm gonna fix this.
Right. I like what Bookart did, where they gave you kind of like different presets.
Yeah, that was cool. They give you a boatload of them too, man. Like 8 or 9 or 10 or something, different presets. They give you a ton of them.
But yeah, definitely, I think it's a good idea. If you have active speakers, here's kind of the secret. Any active speakers, somebody had to program that DSP. So it's definitely possible for someone to program the DSP. It's just a matter of letting you be the one to program the DSP. And it might not be a user-friendly interface. So that's kind of the issue.
Yeah.
It might be easy for some guy who that's all he does, Right. What else? Here's the last starred comment here that I see, and then we can get going. But he says, Michael says, is it still recommended to have the crossovers of all speakers the same or within 10 to 20 hertz of each other?
It varies. It depends. That's the easy answer.
I think the answer that I would give is if they're all the same speaker, then it makes sense that maybe 10 to 20 hertz of each other. But if you have towers in the front and then some tiny speakers in the back, it's probably not a great idea. So it depends. Yeah. It depends. But that's a tough one because there's so much involved. Like you may want to cross over your front speakers lower if they can handle it, because if the front speakers can fill some kind of null, let's say your subs, no matter where you place your subs, you're getting this like dip around like 50 hertz, but your main speakers can cover it. Well, you probably want to let it cover it, So yeah, but you also don't want to set all your other speakers to 50 hertz. That's probably not a great idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. It really just depends on the situation. Sometimes you may want, front towers to be crossed a little bit higher, a little bit lower than maybe your center channel for some reason. It's all about the overall implementation. And I was thinking, Joe, with all the Magic Bean stuff you've been doing, I'm sure you've run into some really odd situations that buck what we would consider the norm, right?
As far as what?
Like, maybe you've seen somebody have these tower speakers in this room, and maybe they've somebody else has had the same speakers, but in another room, and the responses on the low end look completely different because it's very room dependent to some degree, right? So maybe one setup you would say, all right, I'd cross the towers at 100 hertz. And the other setup you say, I'd cross them at 80 hertz and use your subwoofer from 70 hertz and below. Or maybe you'd run the rears, 100 hertz or 120 hertz or something. Because a lot of it is room interaction as well. And you're trying to find, that's why I really believe that, like, there's a lot of, myself included, so I'm not like saying that I'm better than anybody. There's a lot of people who don't have the capability to get the full potential of their system because they just don't know better, right? This stuff isn't easy. It is, right? The basic stuff is easy. Wire up a speaker, set the generic crossover 80 hertz, call it a day. And that's where ignorance is bliss. And that's where I wish I could say, look, stop right there. Don't ask any questions. Just enjoy it and enjoy your life, because the rabbit hole is deep, deep, deep.
Okay, so here's an example that I gave in our Discord group. So here's the Harman target curve. A lot of people like to use this particular target curve, which Floyd Toole said, we didn't make that to be a target curve for anybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the misunderstanding many people have.
So let me get this out of the way here. So, okay, so that's a Harman target curve. Now, here's the target curve that I've determined for my living room. Okay. Well, the base is not the same as the Harman target, especially here.
Yeah.
So the target curve in my living room is different. I mean, the treble it doesn't need as much roll off as a Harman target curve. So that's not correct for my living room. Now here's my home theater. Well, I shouldn't use the same bass rise, right? My particular room doesn't require that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's my kids' room, and here's a way to think about it. A house curve, target curve. House curve is, the way I look at it, is what the room does to affect the sound of the speaker. It kind of makes sense. And that's going to depend on the speaker. It's going to depend on your room, how reflective it is, but also it depends on where your listening position is. So check this one out. This is my kids' room. Look at the bass rise. Why is that?
Is that a really small room?
Well, because where they sit is right against the wall. So the sub and the speakers are against one wall, and they sit against the other wall. So what do you expect?
Oh, yeah.
What's going to happen?
Double loading, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get huge bass rise, right?
Yeah.
That is a function of the room. That's the reason why. That's the house curve of that particular position in that room. Okay.
Crazy.
Now here's my studio. This is where we're at right now. Right? Okay, so a lot of curves coming up now. It's this green curve here.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, this is Harman target, right? The one I'm flashing here. Here's my studio. Okay. That's the curve that's required to sound correct in my studio.
Yeah.
None of these are Harman target.
Yeah.
Right? They're significantly different. Right? Here's Angela's office. That's kind of the closest, I guess, to the Harman target, this one. Now, here's what's interesting. If I take all those out, and I just take an average of, well, did I take an average? We have Ike's, right? Here's another interesting one. This is an example of why the speaker matters. A line array. We know what a line array does.
Yeah.
As you back up from speakers, typically the high frequencies drop off, but a line array doesn't drop off at the same rate. So you notice that the target curve for a line array ends up becoming just flatter, right? Because as you back up, it doesn't fall off as much, and it shouldn't. If you try to make it do this like the Harman target, it's not going to sound correct.
Right.
You're forcing it.
That's the danger in generic curves. I agree with you.
So yeah, Alan's house curve. Here's Fred's. Right. His is kind of similar to my home theater. Right. And so if I take an average of all of them, though, the kids' room was probably throwing it off a lot. But if you look at an average of all of them, they start to kind of look more like the Harman target curve. Right. If I were to kind of exclude, let's say, if I selected all of them and I took out the kids' room and I took an average and I clear that, boom. Still not the Harman target, right? But kind of you get the idea. It's more bass, and then the treble starts to roll off. However much it rolls off depends on the room. So anyway, point being, Harman Target's not perfect for every situation. Not even close.
Yeah.
You know, the idea is you need to figure out your specific room, your speakers, and there's going to be a different target for each room. So, I want to see Ike's room curve. And here's the interesting about Ike's, right? So, the target curve also relates to like the correction that you want to make to the speakers. And I don't know if this is exactly his target curve, but it's related to the correction that we wanted to make to his speakers. Let me show you here. Boom. Hopefully this is not boring you guys too much. But you see how the treble is rising instead of Harman target curve? You expect it to slope downwards, right? Why? Because he has an acoustic transparent screen that's killing the treble. So we want to kind of bring back some of the treble.
I got you.
Yeah, so that's
when the screen's in front of it, though, does it still look like that? Is that what you're saying? That's measured with the screen in place?
What ends up happening is the screen makes it drop off too much.
Yeah.
Right? It starts dropping it off super hard. So, like, in order for it to sound like normal, you need to actually raise it back up. Yeah. So you got to remember, like, the target curve is also the correction sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes part of the correction that you have to make. So anyway, not going in that too much. What else
did you ever review these speakers, the DBR 62s?
Yeah.
They're pretty nice.
Yeah.
They're not like, I already did my review. You'll see it tomorrow. But to me, like, I consider them
debut.
Yeah, the debut. Or no, hold on. Are they the debut reference?
Okay, so they're the two-way, not concentric, right?
Correct. No.
Yeah, I thought they were cool. Something about it just made me feel like it was like I don't know, I felt like it was boring or something. Like something about it, just like
maybe
something wasn't exciting about it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
like the feeling that I got was like, to me, everything just kind of was there, right? So I said in my review, to me, they're the epitome of just a good speaker. Nothing is like stands out as like really great about it, but nothing is really like bad about it. And it's just it's a good listen. It's a non-fatiguing listen, has decent bass extension, pretty neutral. There are some issues, but it's kind of like for $700. Yeah, I definitely would recommend. My thing is, whenever I talk to people about ordering stuff, I'm always like, look, pick a few that you like and get them all and listen. Don't ever just order one and think you're done, because that could lead you astray.
That one is a weird speaker. That's one where it kind of tripped me up because like the measurements look good, like everything looked pretty good, but for some reason I'm like, I don't love these. Like, I can recommend them. It's not like they're low on my list. It's just something about them. I don't know if maybe it's just a design. Maybe my eyes are telling me I don't like them that much. But you know what it was? It's almost like I look at them. They're not the cheapest speakers, least expensive,
right?
And I think it was maybe like I wanted more bass extension. How low did those go? What was the?
I think the F3 anechoic was 53 hertz is what I came up with.
Really? So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. It's kind of along the lines of a bookshelf speaker, like a typical bookshelf. It's not super low, but it's not super high, right? So
I'm getting more into the F10 now. Like, so
that's why I show both. I want to know the slope, right? So to me, the F3 like gives me an idea of like where it starts to roll off. But the F10, I think the F10 was 41 hertz. So once it starts rolling off, it rolls off pretty quick. But like most rooms add 12 dB per octave when they start loading. And typical, it's like 70 hertz, 60 hertz, for a normal sized room. So as long as you can get down to that, in my opinion, as long as you can get down to 50 with a bookshelf speaker, then the room will help carry it down like maybe a half an octave lower. And that's good enough in most cases. I always still recommend I don't think I'm sure there are some bookshelf speakers I've come across and said, you maybe could get away without using a subwoofer, but I would say pretty much every one of them, like 99% of them, you're going to have to use a subwoofer if you want to get below 40.
Debut
that or put them right up against the wall, but then you got other issues.
Debut reference. Okay. I'm just seeing if I have measurements of those. Yeah, they look good. You know what it is? Are they already downward sloping like on axis?
I don't believe so. I can check my measurements, but
EQ,
I kind of feel like there's something there's like a dip around 2 to 3K, I think, that I believe I said I've kind of noticed in my listening, but I don't remember if that was it or not.
No smoothing. All right, hold on.
But so I understand, I think, where you're coming from. And for me, when I was listening to them, I was like, they do some things that are like pretty good. You know, again, it's nothing that's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I think it's a safe bet. You know, like if you're looking for something reasonably neutral, I can tell you a bunch more that are terrible and cost twice as much. I can do that for sure. So
let me see if you reference my next video. I think I have scheduled just us still talking about that Cali Audio INUNF, and I just kind of made a joke. I made a joke. This is what the best reviewers, because all the reviewers say best.
Oh yeah. This is
what the best reviewers talk about, because it was just us nerding out.
Yeah.
Like,
so I hope people get that.
Anybody knew the detail that like you really did not want to mislead people with the measurement. Like, it was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Whereas most people are like, whatever, dude, just tell me whatever it is. Like, I don't care.
Right.
But it's like an hour of us talking about like, hey, but this and this and this, and like going in great detail to make sure that we're giving good information. And I hope people appreciate it, man.
Heads up, you're going to get a lot of comments about how I had the bass module turned upside down. Because I got a lot of those myself. Oh, you had the bass module turned upside down. That's why. I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. Not at that frequency. It doesn't matter. So just a heads up. You're going to get that.
Debut reference. Okay.
Debut reference, DBR 62. Now, so they had another ELAC, which was, I think, the concentric one that was their reference. That was like maybe $1,000 per pair or something like that. And that one actually does have a sloping on-axis response. And the reason Andrew did that, and I verified with him, is because it's got such wide, even dispersion that if it was flat on axis, it would sound bright in room. So he made it tilt down, and actually Kef somewhat did that. I mean, just barely somewhat, like maybe 1 or half a dB worth of slope with their reference 1 meta, which is one of my favorite speakers of all time.
I think these are some of the measurements that I was getting in room. So here, I don't know if this looks like anything, but I took a bunch of them. I think, debut reference.
That seems about right. Is that on axis?
I don't know. This was a while ago.
That seems about right.
Because I was comparing it to the
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that little dip in that like lower tweeter upper mid-range area being there. And so actually, I think in my review, I recommend 20 to 30 degrees off axis is probably the best positioning for them. Yeah. And that makes enough of a difference to me, at least in my ears, that it makes them a good contender. Dude, the number of people that I have coming back to me saying that I made a video about on axis and aiming speakers and stuff. And so I made the video because I wanted people to understand, because I got a lot of questions like, well, when you say toe in or toe out, what do you mean? Right. So I'm gonna make a video so people understand at least what I mean, whether it's what other people mean by it, at least they know where I'm coming from when I talk about it, and everybody has the same starting point. And when I talk about toe in or toe out, my reference point is always the front of the speaker, like the baffle is facing you, not turned away or not anything like that, because the large majority of speakers are designed to be listened to directly on axis with the tweeter facing you, not facing out into the room or anything, right? And maybe they used to be back in the day, but they're not done that way anymore. So I've had a lot of people say, well, your toe in versus toe out is different than mine. And my speakers have always been parallel with the back wall. And it's just very interesting how I guess maybe designs have changed, but that my gripe then is with the manufacturer, because the manufacturer isn't telling people how to aim their speakers. They're leaving a lot open to interpretation. And I think what a lot of people do is they don't know that the tweeter axis should be pointed at them if you want the high frequency stuff, right? So they just sit them and they point them out into the room and they're done. And it kind of frustrates me. I'm not even frustrated at the people who are commenting saying, like, that's not how I do it. That's fine. Again, my point wasn't to say I'm right or wrong. It was just, there's my reference. Now you at least know what I'm talking about. It just aggravates me the more I see them, because I'm like, dang it, the manufacturers are really, they suck, dude. They suck. Yeah. Somebody write a freaking manual. Tell the engineers, what's that in The Office where the guy's like, I go to the engineers and talk to them. You know, like he's the middleman dude. That's somebody needs to do that.
Don't know how to talk to people. I know how to talk to people. The engineers don't know how to talk to people. He's like the liaison between the engineers.
Yeah, exactly. But the manufacturers are doing, because I read pretty much every manual that I get to see, like, all right, what does this manufacturer tell us? Because sometimes they'll tell you, and they want it to be aimed a certain way. It's rare.
You read
but then when you measure it, and it's like, well, it's flat on axis, or you go and talk to them, or you see their demo rooms and they're pointed straight at the listener. And it's like, why can't you just tell people?
We know what it is. We know what it is. It's this. Because it doesn't look as nice, you know?
It doesn't. No, you're absolutely right.
Towed in, and especially if the other one needs a little more toe in, then it's like, I don't know, that one's pointed a little bit this way.
I agree, man.
If it's pointed straight, then it's straight, you know, it's right in line with the other ones. Looks great.
I agree. It does look super weird when they're pointed at you, but just for what it's worth, for those who don't know, most speakers these days are designed to be pointed at you and not away from you.
So here's what they should do. They need to make a speaker where the baffle is angled in, and then the grill is like the other type of other triangle that's complementary. And so when you look at it from the front, it looks like it's straight ahead.
It looks like straight ahead, But the grill has got to be just like super thin, like metal, like no, like mesh. You know what I'm saying? Because it can't disturb the frequency response to the speaker. I hear you.
Yeah, you know what? That I reviewed the what the heck were those speakers? There are ones where they're like weird looking speakers. They're actually still high up on my leaderboard, maybe still the top one, because you face them square, and the woofer and the tweeter is angled like 45 degrees. It's like don't toe it in at all. Like you just put it up against the wall. It's made to go up against the wall.
Yeah.
What
interesting.
Let me see.
Was that the one? Larson, was that them?
Yeah, the Larson 4s. So they were using some good drivers. You know, the response is kind of weird, but it's almost like it's one of those like Bose things, like the ones that you kind of like. Like I know what's wrong with it, but there's other things that I like about it.
Right.
Like the fact that it's meant to go up against the wall. Well, you're gonna get a lot of bass from that. Well, I like bass.
Yeah.
You know, so I like that they took into account, hey, you know, we're gonna get this reflection, so they have like sound absorption like right in the back of it. It's kind of like a weird design, but I appreciated the practical approach to like put them against the wall, and we'll take care of the way it sounds through the way that we designed the speaker. And it sounded pretty good. I liked it. It did other things. Let's see here. Where's that? Oh yeah. Before we go, I want to just leave this. Maybe we can talk about this another time. But you know how we were talking about, well, Chana and I were talking about 45 degrees for left and right speaker.
Yeah.
And we were saying that that's how it is done in Logic. And people, you know, most people say, no, it's 22 to 35 degrees. That's the known thing.
In Dolby, you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, in Apple Logic. Using Dolby Atmos. And I've had a conversation with Reverend Slim for seriously like 2 or 3 hours. But this is from the Logic Pro user guide from Apple's website. And it shows, you know, if you're using, you know, this kind of setup, 5.1 ITU standard, 30 degrees. Yeah. Yep. 30 degrees.
Left, right, center.
30 degrees. Yep. We all agree on that.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, once you get to 7.1, they decide like this is the ideal mixing position, that the left should be here, and it says it in the, you know, it's I don't get it.
That's wild.
It makes sense because you have 45 degrees here, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45. That makes sense. But it's not in accordance to the previous ITU standard, and that's all we were saying. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not saying you should move your speakers. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying this is what it is. What you want to do about that, whether you want to move your speakers to 45, that's up to you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether they need to change this, or I'm just saying it is this. That's all.
Hey, can you scroll up just a couple to where there was a bunch of speakers in the front?
Oh yeah. So the old Sony dynamic digital SDDS.
That's hilarious. I did that in my car like 10, 12 years ago.
Really?
That's funny. Yeah. I didn't know that was I was trying to do rear fill, and I was like, what happens if you put the rear field speakers up front and make it have more ambiance up front, right? So that's kind of what I did. The angles weren't the same, but that's the idea I was going for, was putting actual speakers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about actually trying that in my Tesla.
So this is the LC is supposed to be like left center and right center.
Yeah.
And it's just the in between these two.
Yeah, right. You're basically forcing the soundstage to fall out in a certain way, right? Like the mapping and stuff like that. Like for car audio, this makes perfect sense, because in car audio, we judge center of soundstage left and right. And we say, all right, well, the center is the acoustic center, right? Like it's between the acoustic left and right. So in a car, you can easily have the soundstage sound like it's further out, like on the right side of your car, if for left-handed drivers. Yeah. And the left soundstage limit would be like just at the A-pillar. So what does that do then? Well, that shifts your acoustic center over to the right. It's not in the center of the car anymore. It's over a few inches to the right. And that's the biggest thing that people struggle with when they go in to set up their time alignment. They will physically try to place the vocalist in the center of their car, but it's not completely in phase, because that's not where the acoustic center is. The acoustic center is over to the side a little bit. So if you dial back your time alignment one way or the other a little bit, you'll lock that vocal in, and that's where your center is. But it throws you off because, like, again, car audio competition aspect, people expect the center to be roughly the center of the car, and it's hardly ever that way.
Yeah, what's the first time I've ever heard this, you probably heard this a bunch of times, but I heard this guy referring to the tuning of the center image on the car as the American way and like the European way. Have you heard of that?
There's one like more out of phase?
No. Okay. So I guess a lot of European cars, like German cars, they put the center image so it sounds center for the driver.
The driver, so it's right in front of them. Yeah.
Right there. Whereas a lot of times the rest make it so it's the center for both of them. And so it would be slightly to the right. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so that is something that when you put your center in front of you, well, first of all, it's not the acoustic center. There's no way it can be unless you have your left speaker and your right speaker equidistant from that acoustic center, right? There's just it's not going to be that way. And what that means is then that your right soundstage, your right center, and your right speaker, the soundstage imaging is going to be broader on that side than your left. So I'll start back over. Let's say you got a perfect stereo triangle and you've got your center dead in front of you, right? And you've got your left speaker 30 degrees to the side. You got your right speaker 30 degrees to the side. Okay. In a car, you sit over a couple feet. So now you're actually sitting about 15, maybe 10 degrees off from your left speaker, and even further, way further than 30 degrees, like 45, maybe 60 degrees from your right speaker. If you don't leave your center vocalist where it was and you move it with you, so where it's in front of you still, that collapses your left soundstage. Like all the vocals are in a tight little spot, about 10 inches apart from each other. There's nowhere for it to go. But your right soundstage is wide open, about 2 or 3 feet wide. And so it doesn't make any sense. You can never have a center directly in front of you, right? But you can try to force it to be that way, but it's never going to be that way because you're never going to have even spacing between images from your left to your right. Is that it may be kind of hard to
I get it, and
it's just wild how people do this.
I was even doing some level matching using binaural mics because of course our head affects things. And I was coming up with some pretty crazy stuff about like, I wonder if this is the better way to do level matching, because what I think is actually happening when it comes to level matching, just we'll throw it out there, who cares, is I think that your left ear is going to be the first time arrival for the left speaker. Yeah. It's also going to be significantly louder than this one. Right? But a typical measurement, for home theater at least, would be putting the mic here. Well, it doesn't take into account at all what your head is doing. Right. So your head actually acts kind of like as a boundary also. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is, depending on the angle of the speaker, if it's coming from here, it also affects things. Right. Because so I think the better way is to level match based on the loudest sound at a particular ear. So anything that's on the left, typically, you're going to want to calibrate that so it's a certain level at this ear. And then for anything on the right, it should be about the same level at this ear, right?
Right.
Not what's in the center,
Right.
you know. And I think it really matters that the mics are on your head. I think it actually does something level wise, even not even talking about frequency response. I think for some reason there's definitely something to do with the mic being near your head. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's some crazy stuff. And before we go, I just want to leave this. I talked to, you probably know who it is. I was talking to a guy, and he's talking about some crazy measurement stuff from JL Audio, and I was like, dude, how do you what do you do? He's like, oh, I work for them. I'm like, that's freaking cool.
that dude's on
Like,
another level, man.
dang, I got chills right now because my 13-year-old self, 15-year, whatever, you know, to think that I get to talk to a guy who works at JL Audio, like, damn.
You know what's crazy is
Cool.
I don't think that he has an engineering degree or physics background or anything.
Mm-hmm.
He started working in a car audio shop. I remember him asking me questions early on, and like he would ask me questions, and I would be like, dude, I ain't got a clue what you're talking about. And then a few years later, man, he's working for JL Audio on their DSP stuff, and he's just like, I mean, I've met him. Have I met him in person? I don't think I've met him in person, but I've had a few Skypes with him. And the impression that I get, you know, you meet those people sometimes, they're just like, for whatever reason, everything just clicks with them about whatever topic, you know? He's one of those guys. Just like, I'm just in awe of people like that who can just easily get stuff. And I'm just like, man, that's so cool. You know, like, teach me. I was asking him questions about stuff, and he was just telling me stuff. And I was like, yeah, I got that. And then 2 or 3 minutes later, I'm like, hold up, start over. You know, like, you lost me, dude. So it's always cool to have somebody like that who just like, who knows so much and is so willing to share that information. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you've gotten to meet him. It's a small world, ain't it though? Because when you mentioned him, I was like, I know him.
Yeah. So it's just crazy because I'm into DSP stuff, and the car audio world needs DSP more than any other space.
Yeah, dude.
You totally need it. So they're super advanced when it comes to DSP stuff.
Yeah.
Like they're on the next level. So it's just, I just thought it was super cool. I'm like, man, this is not such a bad job. You know what I mean? I get to talk to some smart people.
Yeah.
We get to play with speakers. This is fun. So I hope you guys have fun, in watching our videos, watching these podcasts, because it's just for us to kind of relax and just be normal, because like I've said before, YouTube is kind of a lonely job. Even though I'm here at home, if I'm measuring speakers, I can't have the kids running around. Got to be quiet. Yeah. They got to be in another room. So, and then you're sitting there editing.
I hate editing.
That's what we're doing. We hate it.
I do, man. I really do. I mean, it takes me so long to edit a video when I can just sit down and talk off the cuff, and it's just easier. And if I mess up, I mess up. Like nobody cares, because it's like having a conversation. It's just so informal that it makes it so relaxed, and I enjoy that aspect of it. When I edit something, I feel like I'm under the gun to make sure everything is perfect.
I get it.
I do that to myself.
It's like this. I think it comes down to this, because there's an opportunity for you to cut the parts where you made mistakes. It's expected. So if you pre-record it and you don't cut out those things, like, why didn't you just cut this stuff?
Yeah.
Because it takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
join
the after show. bit.ly, let me see. Yeah, bit.ly/Daily HiFi Crew if you want to join the after show. And that's really the funnest part. We get to talk to all these people. We make legitimate friends. I can't wait to see these people in person.
Hear about M-Wave.
Yeah, I want to hear about what happened over there.
Hold up. You made me think of something. You said bit.ly. So it made me think of immediately bit.ly, man. Remember Method Man? M-E-T-H-O-D, man. Yeah.
And then August 12th and 13th, if you're in the SoCal area, I plan on doing a little something around here. So stay tuned. I'll give some more details. Basically, I want to maybe do a little something where a little get together for people who are nearby, and show off what Magic Beans can do. I have some extra speakers, and I got some speakers from Monolith. I wanted to review some new stuff from them, and they happened to send me speakers I've already reviewed. So I'm like, what do you want me to do with these? Like, I already reviewed these. They're like, well, why don't you give them away at your event? So we'll do that. And yeah, I have a couple other companies who I've talked to. This is not anything crazy, nothing serious, but basically they're like, yeah, let me know what you guys need to make it a cool event. So maybe those guys will even come down, but it's not going to be anything crazy. It's just I have some extra space and I want to meet some of you guys. So 12th and 13th, if you're in the SoCal area, stay tuned on my channel. But for now, we're going to go to the after show.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys later.
Holla!
All right, bye.